Very good morning to all of you, and welcome to this session on TCS. The new provision of TCS on sale of goods under Section 206C of IT income tax as introduced by the Finance Act of 2020 come into effective from 1st of this month. This provision of TCS on sale of goods has wide ramification because till now TCS was applicable only to certain items, but covering all goods within the purview of TCS, and almost all the business entities are now comes under the umbrella of TCS. Going forward, the compliance of the provision of these sections looks little tough to implement and requires understanding of both buyers as well as sellers for proper execution and implementation of the provision. TIO is continuously getting inquiry on this subject for clarifications and issues and etc. And hence our regional chairman felt that the session should be organized to get clarification on the subject. And I'm very happy that BDO India, which is one of the renowned firm handling direct and indirect taxation matters in India, immediately agreed to join with FIO in organizing this session. Today's session is expected to cover TCS on foreign remittance, sale of goods, TDS on e-commerce operators and equalization levy. We have a very eminent panel of speakers from BDO. Mr. Niranjan Govindekar is tax and regulatory services of partner in BDO. He's having experience of more than 2 decades handling corporate international tax, corporate tax, transfer pricing, structuring, inward remittance, etc. Apart from that, he is handling various domestics and cross-border mergers, demergers, acquisitions, joint ventures, etc. We also with us Mr. Raghunathan Parthaswarathi, is associated partner, tax and regulatory services of BDO. He's operating from Chennai and having more than 12 years of professional experience in handling tax and regulatory matters. His areas of expertise include tax advisory, tax litigation, and corporate restructuring. He's also speaker in various fora, including ICAI and in Coimbatore and Chennai. With this brief introduction, I invite our regional chairman, Mr. Israr Ahmad, to deliver his welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, and good morning to everybody. It's great to have this session, and we have quite a lot of participants in this meeting. Almost we have, I think it's like going up from 230 and keeps going up. This shows the importance of TCS and us itself as an exporter. What we are seeing is that, when this TCS was implemented or came into effect from 1st of October, we all felt, that we need to know more about it so that we can do the right things. And because these are tax compliance issues as well, so we need to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes. We've learned a lot from our previous GST issues as well. So I'm really happy. And I'd like to thank BDO and Mr. Niranjan and his colleague for joining in today and agreeing to do this session, because this is an important session. I believe that once we get to know more about it, then we will have the correct implementation within our companies as well. There are a lot of questions that were raised from my own company and from other companies who've written to us and asked, and I hope that those things will get a lot more clearer. There was a study done by Ernst & Young, and this was, I believe, was done in September. They came out with where they said 80% of the organizations consider issues or applicability and updating systems and processes as a significant challenge to comply with the new TCS regime. And 85% admitted that they are not fully ready to deal with the various tax and the legal implications of TCS provisions on varying business scenario. And 81% recognize that the reconciliation and ensuring accuracy due to TCS compliance will increase manual intervention for their tax schemes. This was a survey done with the 110 tax heads and chief financial officers by Ernst & Young and SAP, and they both had done this in September, and this is what was the result of the survey. So you can imagine how important and necessary this is. I think FIO has done a great job before with GST. This is not as big as GST, but still, I believe it's very important and we need to look at it seriously. So I hope to have a great session today, and I look forward to being a part. Please go ahead and ask as many questions as you can to the team. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving insight on the subject and briefing on how important this subject is. Now I invite Mr. Niranjan Govindekar as a partner BDO India who operate from Mumbai. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Unnikrishnan. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you, FIEO Chennai, for inviting me and my colleague Raghunathan to this webinar and giving us this opportunity to talk on the newly introduced provisions dealing with equalization levy and the TCS on foreign remittances and sale of goods. We would like to present to you today an analytical synopsis of the legal provisions of the newly introduced equalization levy and the TCS provision. I would take you through broadly the framework of legal provisions, its legislative intent, the background and the history, and my colleague Raghunathan would take you through an analytical synopsis of the issues arising out of the provisions, the clarification issued by the government thus far, and the open issues and the compliance burden which the new provisions have put in on the taxpayers as such. With this, broadly speaking about the equalization levy, many of you may be aware that the equalization levy, colloquially also known as the Google tax, was first introduced by the Finance Act 2016. It was introduced as a measure to address tax challenges which are posed by increased digitization of the economy. An equalization levy at a rate of 6% was initially introduced on considerations received by the non-residents, maybe the companies like Google, Facebook, on the certain specified services provided to residents in India. The specified services such as online advertisement predominantly. With the projected global e-commerce sales for the period 2017 to 2023, that is the period of 6 years, is slated to register a threefold growth. Taxation of digital economy and the e-commerce transactions have gained the global significance, and it is in the global focus, and India is no exception to it. In fact, India is the fastest growing e-commerce market and has registered roughly 32% growth, and the sales, e-commerce sales of India for 2019 were roughly pegged at $46 billion. Even in this situation of the pandemic, the e-commerce industry is touted to be the biggest beneficiary. And it will not be a short-term boost to the e-commerce, but it is here to stay. There is likely that there will be a permanent behavioral shift towards digital transactions. The digital business has challenges for governments world over in terms of locating who's the locating the transaction as to where the transaction can be said to have consummated, who is the taxpayer from whom the tax can be recovered, whether what kind of rules of taxation to be formed. And with this backdrop, the scope of levy of equalization is now extended by the Finance Act 2020 to broadly cover all e-commerce supply or services made or facilitated by a non-resident e-commerce operator also. The levy is currently 2% on the consideration received. The scope of e-commerce for this levy is so extensive that transactions carried out through any digital platform would fall within its purview. Raghu will take you through a detailed report dealing with breakdown of the legal provisions, but this is what the broad context that I wanted to set in. Now, talking of newly introduced provisions for TCS, as you heard that TCS till now was applied for the selected transaction involving prescribed goods and services. Let's take example of purchase of a motor car more than 10 lakh was subjected to TCS, sale of scrap or purchase of a bullion more than 2 lakh rupees and so on and so forth. However, the Finance Act 2020 with a view of with an objective to widen the tax net has brought in three new provisions of TCS that will be applicable from 1st October 2020. The provisions broadly deal with 5% TCS on all the foreign remittances under liberalized remittance scheme. Secondly, liberalized remittance scheme exceeding 7 lakh rupees per annum. Secondly, a 5% TCS is applicable on purchase of any overseas tour package, and this is irrespective of the value involved. And thirdly, a TCS at a rate of 0.1% on sale of goods for over 50 lakhs in a year. Just to see the genesis of this provision, a reference can be made to the finance minister's speech in 1718, where some of you may recollect that the finance minister had given statistics about the number of taxpayers, what is the amount of taxable income that they have reported. And in sum and substance, the Honorable Finance Minister came down to say that out of 3.7 crore individuals who file tax returns, roughly only 24 lakhs show income more than 10 lakhs, and it is only 1.7 lakh who report income more than 50 lakhs. In contrast to this, more than 1.25 crore cars were purchased in a block of 5 years, as well as nearly 2 crore Indians have traveled in the year 2015 abroad for either for business or tourism. So with this backdrop, coupled with the fact that post the increase in the limits of LRS, that is that liberalized remittance scheme, from 1.25 lakh per annum to 2.5 lakh per annum in 2015, there has been a sudden upsurge in quantum of the flow of money outside India. The flow of the remittance outside India was roughly 1 billion in financial year 11-12. This has gone up to nearly 13 billion in 2018. So further, the report of SIT revealed that remittances under LRS were used for tax evasion also. It is in this backdrop, the amendment proposed by Finance Act 2020 seems to be a conscious attempt by the government to track and investigate the genuineness and bona fides of these remittances done in the LRS scheme, and hence this additional burden of say compliance or a collection of TCS which is proposed to be introduced. Now, both these amendments relating to equalization levy on e-commerce transactions and TCS were a bolt from the blue. And it is important to understand nitty-gritties of the new provisions. And we have made a sincere attempt to take you through the detailed nitty-gritties of the provisions, its impacts, and the examples which could be useful for the day-to-day practical life. With this opening remarks or some broad framework, I now request my colleague Raghu to run you through the presentation, and then maybe we can take up the questions or the queries that we have. Raghu, if you can please share the screen.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Niranjan, and thank you, FIU, for providing us the opportunity. With the opening remarks of Niranjan, let me share the presentation which we would take you through in this session. So just to give you, as Niranjan stated, the equalization levy, we will be covering these transactions. One is the equalization levy. Second will be the TCS on e-commerce transactions. Then TCS on sale of goods. Then the last two, which is TCS on foreign remittance under the liberalized remittance scheme, and TCS on foreign remittance for overseas tour program and packages. So the broad overview of the sections that govern these transactions is one, with respect to sale of goods, which is covered under section 206C H, and sale of TDS on e-commerce transaction, which is 194O. Then foreign remittance with respect to overseas tour packages, 206C 1G, and foreign remittance under LRS scheme, which is 206C 1G. And there is a separate levy, which is equalization levy, governing, which was passed under the Finance Act, which governs the equalization levy and covering sections 163 to 180. Broadly, the services or the transactions that are targeted by these levies are captured here. On the right top, equalization levy under 165A, which is the newly introduced and which was made effective from this financial year. This caters for online sale of goods and services that are facilitated by an e-commerce operator. So this includes all the online sale of goods and services by whatever name called, either it is the e-commerce operator, whether he owns the portal or he just manages or he just facilitates. It covers everything with respect to this equalization levy. On the left of the equalization levy is the TDS on e-commerce transactions, which is governed under section 194O. This governs the sale of goods or services by an e-commerce participant, which is facilitated through an e-commerce operator. Once we see these in detail, I will take you through what is the distinction between the equalization levy versus TDS under section 194O. So in the second half of the circle, on the right side is the TCS on sale of goods. So this is, while it was originally intended from April and then it was pushed, and finally it was made effective from 1st of October 2020, wherein the seller is required to collect 0.1% of the total sale consideration received by from the purchaser. Now, due to this COVID, there is a reduction of 25%, which means from now till 31st March, the seller is required to collect 0.075%. The last two is, as Niranjan was stating, this is more in relation to identifying or collecting data about the people who are doing a foreign travel or who are making foreign remittance, which is TCS on foreign remittance with respect to a liberalized remittance scheme, which is at the bottom of the circle. And on the left hand side of it is the TCS on foreign remittance pertaining to overseas tour program and packages. While the last two may not take the category of an income, but the collection of tax with respect to these two remittance is more to collect data about the taxpayer. However, this will result in a cash lock for the taxpayers, because though the persons may not be subject to tax or may not have a taxable income, due to this deduction, they may have to file tax return and then seek a refund of it. So this is the overall services that are targeted by the tax. To start with is the equalization levy. So while Niranjan was taking you through the background, the reason why the levy was made, there has been a lot of discussions on this. Number one, is because there were tax avoidance by the multinational companies in the source country, where the sale will be made from the source country, while from India we are going to procure this without taxes. And then Action Plan 1 of BEPS was dealing specifically on the tax challenges in the digital economy. Then with respect to the limitation in the Income Tax Act on the PE rules, and then that lack of tax neutrality. So based on this, OECD came up with some 3 action plans for the governments, so that they can try to tax those transactions which doesn't take place physically in the country. So wherein they wanted to, if there is a nexus between the significant economic presence in the country of the seller, or you can try to do a withholding tax on the online sales or the e-commerce, or third option was equalization levy. While the Finance Act introduced the concept of significant economic presence of a foreign company in India, though they don't have a physical presence, but that provisions got deferred till assessment year 22-23, which is financial year 21-22. So as well, the withholding tax and the significant economic presence taxation, they were somewhere ineffective from the purview of the government because of the beneficial provisions of the DTAA, which was helping the non-resident companies to avoid any withholding tax in India. So in order to overcome this limitation, the government introduced in the Finance Act 2016 equalization levy. So I will not spend more time on this. I'll just quickly browse through this sheet, and then we can move on to the latest equalization levy. But the way the equalization levy operates was provided in the Finance Act 2016. So this equalization levy targeted for the specified services, which is online advertising, and any provision of digital advertising space, or any advertisement or provision of facility or service for online advertisement. So it restricted itself with respect to the online advertising, as Niranjan was talking about Google tax. So when a person avails an online advertisement service from a non-resident, then there will be an equalization levy of 6% on the consideration which is to be received by the non-resident. So the way this tax was operated is very similar to the TDS provisions. So if you see an Indian person who's a resident or a non-resident who has a permanent establishment in India and doing business in India, if they are availing the services of a non-resident with respect to the advertisement, then on the payments that are made to the non-resident, there has to be an equalization levy at the rate of 6%. So while very similar to the withholding tax, here the Indian person should be required to withhold a 6% on the amount which is getting paid to the non-resident and remitted to the government. So while there were certain negative or an exceptions, like where the total consideration which is to be paid is less than 1 lakh, then there is no requirement. Or if the non-resident who's providing you this services has a physical presence in India or a PE in India, then there is no requirement for withholding this equalization levy. Or if the person who's making the payment is not carrying on any business, then there is no requirement. So this is the exception. At a very high level, the compliance, how this remittance or how this compliance is to be done. The equalization levy which is collected is to be deposited within 7th of the following month, very similar to the TDS provisions. If there is a delay, then 1% interest. If you fail to deduct the equalization levy, very similar to your income tax provisions, there will be a disallowance under the in filing your tax return. And again, there was an exemption provided under the Income Tax Act for the non-resident, where if you have a withholding, if you have an equalization levy deducted, then that particular income will not be subject to tax in India. Now, with this background, there was this equalization levy which was levied from the Finance Act 2020. Now, see here, the Finance Act 20 expanded the scope of equalization levy to cover non-resident e-commerce service providers. So where a non-resident provides the services of e-commerce, which can cover sale of goods, sale of services, substance, everything, then there has to be withholding, there has to be an equalization levy to the extent of 2% which needs to be charged. Now, the charge of equalization levy, which is 2%, received or receivable by the non-resident e-commerce operator from e-commerce supply or services that are made, provided, or facilitated. Now, each word has a significance, because there may be a case where a non-resident would just provide you the portal where the buyer and seller may not be controlled by the non-resident. So he would just facilitate it, or the non-resident service provider can in fact sell the products of its own through this portal, or he can just do a facility of routing the products or routing the payment. Now, the Finance Act expanded this definition to cover all of these aspects, so that where an Indian buyer is going to procure any products from a non-resident sitting in India, then they would want the equalization levy to be collected. Now, the levy is collected from the person resident in India, and then, or when you purchase goods or services through an IP address located in India. So a person may be a non-resident for the Income Tax Act, but if he's going to come sit in India and he's going to procure a product through an IP address which is in India, then again, this will be subject to equalization levy. The third parlance, a non-resident, where the sale is being done to a non-resident by this non-resident e-commerce operator, then it also covers the case where if you are selling an advertisement which is targeting a customer in India, or an IP address situated in India, or when I'm selling a product, rather selling a data online, which is collected from persons who are residents in India, or an IP address situated in India, then that sale is also covered. Now, on the right hand side, the transactions is being presented in the form of a box. See, a non-resident e-commerce operator will be supposed to collect the equalization levy. This person will be, he should not have a PE in India, or in case he has a PE in India, the business should not be connected with the PE. So every non-resident operator rendering e-commerce service collects 2% from a buyer or a service recipient in India. There is one threshold: if the total sale of the non-resident is less than INR 2 crores, then this equalization levy need not be collected. So this 2 crore is not of a particular buyer in India. It is in sum and substance the complete turnover of the non-resident e-commerce operator. Now, there is a difference in the way this equalization levy introduced by Finance Act 16 versus Finance Act 20, the way it operates. Now, the first one, trigger for equalization levy in India for the Finance Act 2016 equalization levy is that the non-resident service provider who's providing advertisement services. So the services covered, which is the second row, is online advertisement or providing online space, digital space. While the FA 2020, the services or the person covered is a non-resident e-commerce operator who either owns, operates, or manages the electronic facility or the platform. Where a non-resident is selling an advertisement to another non-resident who may not be in India, but the advertisement targets Indian customers or the data is collected from Indian customers, then still the FA 2020 equalization levy will apply. Specified services for FA 2020, online sale of goods, provision of services owned or facilitated. Now, who are the persons who are subject to this levy or from whom this has to be collected? Indian resident carrying on business or profession in India, or a non-resident having a PE in India. In the FA 2020 case, it is an Indian resident who buys products or services, or a non-resident who gets the data with respect to the from the Indian customers or targets advertisement to the Indian customers. The quantum, FA 2016 is 6%, while FA 2020 is 2% on the gross amount. But the significant catch is this: for the Finance Act 2016 equalization levy, the service recipient will be required to withhold the tax. The service recipient will be required to withhold tax. So when the person pays from India, he is supposed to deduct tax and pay, which is very similar to the TDS that is being made on remittance to foreign companies. But the FA 2020 forms a different way, which makes it similar to the TCS provisions that we are talking about now. So here, where a non-resident e-commerce service provider is supposed to pay the 2% of the gross amount. Now, he has two options: either to collect additional 2% of this levy and pay to the Indian government, or the person has to, out of the consideration that he is receiving, he has to pay 2% to the government. Now, this is where a significant challenges would come in, where now when the products are sold to the Indian customers, it is easy to pick this 2%, while the second or the third parts wherein the data or the advertisement is targeting the Indian customer, and or whether the IP address used is from India, then it will be very difficult for the non-resident e-commerce service provider to identify these services and remit those taxes. So this will be an issue which the e-commerce service providers need to consider. Threshold limit for equalization levy of Finance Act 2016, if the payment for online advertisement or the digital place is less than 1 lakh, then there is no equalization levy to be deducted. Any payments over and above 1 lakh, equalization levy has to be made. For FA 2020, the person who has to pay, or the e-commerce service provider's total turnover, if it is less than 2 crores, then there is no need to collect and remit this equalization levy. Some of the exemptions which was discussed earlier: if the non-resident has a PE in India, or the payment to the non-resident is less than 1 lakh, then there is no need to deduct this equalization levy. With respect to 2020, if the e-commerce operator has a PE in India, or the business is connected effectively to that PE in India, then this equalization levy doesn't apply. And wherever there is an equalization levy, the Income Tax Act provides an exemption to the non-resident, but there is again a slight lacuna or the clerical error in drafting that, where the equalization levy is made effective from 1st October 2020. The exemption is provided only from 1st April 2021. We expect this error to just get nullified, and then the exemption should be given from 1st April 2020 for the non-resident. So some of the FAQs, broadly the FAQs which we just thought to provide so that we get some clarity on some of the frequently used transactions. One is with respect to a software subscription, where a software subscription is made through online mode, whether the equalization levy 2.0 will apply. Now, the potential or the possible answer, where a software sale is as a product or service, both is covered under equalization levy if you are downloading or buying the software online. So when you are going to procure any software through Amazon or any other e-commerce portals, then the equalization levy would be applicable. Now, second, whether the non-resident e-commerce operator, can he claim the equalization levy of the 2% which he is going to pay in India as a credit against his taxes in the foreign country? Now that is still a question, because equalization levy is not a tax on income, but it is more or less similar to your GST or a service tax on the reverse charge mechanism on that. So still, whether the non-resident will be able to claim credit would depend on the jurisdiction of his residence and the tax laws of that respective country. Third is with respect to cloud computings. So does equalization levy will be applicable on cloud computing? So somewhere this is not quite clear as of now, because equalization levy just confronts, or it tries to tax those services that are front end, like whether you are downloading a software or giving an advertisement, or there is any services which are done through online, those aspects, but not a back-end support. So wherein the service provider provides you a back-end support of cloud computing or similar services which are completely provided online. So that is still not very clear whether equalization levy would be applicable to those particular nature of services. Now, the third one, what is the taxable amount? Whether it is the gross revenue which you pay to a non-resident e-commerce operator, or does it restrict only to the commission income which the non-resident e-commerce operator is entitled to? Now, we see the ambit of the new levy. It covers both sale of goods and services facilitated, which means there is still an ambiguity which is existing, whether it is going to be the entire amount less any discount or cashbacks that the person is getting, or whether it is going to be only the commission income. Still, this particular aspect is not clear, because most of the operators, they pass on their purchase price to the actual seller, and they retain only the commission income. So this is still unclear. Now, the most important question is this: what if the subject transaction falls within the ambit of royalty FTS after equalization levy is paid? So this is a very important question, because where an Indian person is going to make a remittance to a foreign non-resident, and the non-resident service provider pays equalization levy of 2% and says that this equalization levy of 2% is paid, so there is no need for a withholding tax under section 195. But later on, when the Indian resident is taken up for an assessment and the tax officer says this is subject to withholding tax as royalty or FTS, then the tax will be collected from the Indian resident. Now, whether the non-resident will get the equalization levy refunded, or whether the tax office will accept that this transaction is subject to equalization levy, so shouldn't be subject to 195. So this question will still needs to be answered. So these are all few cases where there are quite some clarity. Otherwise, there are other cases which the clarity needs to get evolved over a period of time. Now, the next topic, which is similar to e-commerce transaction, but this is rather similar to equalization levy, but this is a TDS provision. Now, the equalization levy FA 2002 targets a non-resident e-commerce operator. Now, it's the other version which targets the resident e-commerce participants. So now, just see the topic. This act, Income Tax Act, was amended, which mandated e-commerce operators to withhold tax on payments made to e-commerce participants. So here, the compliance burden is shifted to e-commerce operators, where they facilitate a sale of products or services through their platform. Now, where an e-commerce participant approaches an e-commerce operator and sale is made to the final customer, and then when the customer pays the consideration to the e-commerce operator, and then the e-commerce operator passes it on to the participant who actually sells the product, there the withholding tax needs to be made. Now, some of the participants has raised their hands. Probably we'll just finish the session. Rather, I'll just run you through the presentation, and those questions we can take it up. We'll have around at least 30 minutes at the end of the session so that we can answer all the questions. So, continuing the presentation. So, wherein the e-commerce participant will be subject to withholding tax. Now, key points here: TDS at the rate of 1% is to be deducted by the e-commerce operator for sale of goods or provision of services, or both that are facilitated through this platform. Now here, if the e-commerce participant is a non-resident, then this section doesn't apply. 194O doesn't apply, for the very simple reason: for a non-resident e-commerce operator or a participant, equalization levy applies, and not TDS on e-commerce transaction. And there is a limit with respect to individuals or HUFs. If the total sale value of the e-commerce participant only being an individual or HUF, then there will be no withholding made by the e-commerce operator. And other one concession which was given is, if a transaction is subject to TDS under 194O, wherein the e-commerce operator, there will be no additional withholding tax which will be made for the e-commerce participant by the final consumer. So it will suffer only 194O, and it doesn't suffer other 194C or J directly from the final consumer. And there is an exception, that the online advertisement or any service, any facility of hosting and advertisement is not covered under this e-commerce transaction. There were certain FAQs which came in because there were a lot of questions raised on what are all the transactions which are covered by this e-commerce provisions. So the government came up with clarifications. One, this e-commerce doesn't apply to the stock markets or the securities markets. So where there is a trading of shares or commodities on a recognized stock market, both is 194O, which is the TDS on e-commerce, or the sale of goods, TCS on goods, doesn't apply. Then again, transactions in electricity or renewable energy certificate or energy saving certificates, those sorts which are traded in stock market, that is not covered. The second question, which there needs to be some sort of an clarification which is to come: double tax deduction due to online payments. So here there will be two parties which are involved. One party is the e-commerce operator, while the second, there will be a payment gateway through whom the payment is getting facilitated. So in this case, the payment gateway operator who facilitates this transaction, it is better he takes a declaration from the e-commerce operator stating the withholding tax is done by the e-commerce operator, so that the payment gateway again need not withhold taxes. So this is one point. Second, the TDS on insurance agents or insurance aggregators So the government, when they came up with the circular, clarified this particular point. Only in the first year where the insurance agent or the aggregator facilitates this transaction, the TDS under this section will apply. And in the subsequent years where the policy is just getting renewed without the interference of the insurance agent or the aggregator, this will not be applicable. And with respect to the threshold limit, where for an individual or an HUF, the total quantum was 5 lakhs, the threshold limit for the e-commerce trade will commence from 1st April 2020. So to make this provision, or to make the understanding of this provision easier, I've just tabled some of the scenarios where the serial number 1, which is wherein an operator who is the e-commerce operator will be an Indian resident. So e-commerce operator who is a cab aggregator or a hotel aggregators or an online trading platforms. So the e-commerce operator will be an Indian resident. The model is a marketplace model where the cab operators or the hotels present their data or their services to this model, and participant, which is the hotels or the cabs, will be Indian resident. Who are all the sellers listed on this website? Whether this applicable, this operator is liable to deduct tax on the sale, because the operator is an Indian resident and the participant, the persons who are selling their services or goods are also Indian residents. So the TDS on e-commerce will be applicable. Second one, where the operator is an Indian resident, same marketplace model, while the participant is a non-resident. So in this case, the e-commerce participant is a foreign hotel or a foreign company. So here, this operator is not liable to, here the operator Indian resident is not liable to deduct tax. Simple reason, this will get covered under equalization levy. Third, the operator is a non-resident, same marketplace model where a participant is a resident who is going to sell the services. Here, operator is likely to will be subject to withhold tax on payment to the Indian resident. Now, this is the case where it will be very difficult for the operator to comply with these provisions. Take an example, you have a booking.com, which is typically based out of the UK, where Indian hotels are a part of it. Now, when the payment is made through their platform, the non-resident is nowhere connected to India. But this section would mandate the non-resident to withhold tax and pay to the government. So this is the area where the government needs to come up with certain clarifications or facilitate the compliance under this particular section. Fourth, the e-commerce operator is a non-resident. It's again marketplace model where a participant is also non-resident. So booking.com and Lee Meridian US, then there will be no complaints of this particular section here. So 4 plausible options wherein the residential status of both operator and the participant is considered, and how this provision would work. Just the difference or the deviations between the equalization levy and 194(o). Residential status of e-commerce operator, for equalization levy, only non-resident e-commerce operator will be covered. For 194(o), both resident and non-resident e-commerce operator will be covered. So this is the difference. Recipient of service, equalization levy, resident, and 194(o), it's also resident. Threshold limit 2 crore for the e-commerce operator. Here it is only 5 lakhs for the e-commerce participant. That is only restricted to individuals or HUF with PAN. Rate of levy is 2%, while it is in the form of TCS, while 194(o), the rate is 1%, but it partakes the character of a TDS. Person responsible for collection and deduction and the compliance for equalization levy, it is the resident or the non-resident using the IP address to avail e-commerce services. 194(o), it is actually the e-commerce operator has to comply with. Just to give you a simple illustration how this equalization levy and section 194 operates, let's take an example of a company abc.com, which is a non-resident e-commerce operator. And this company facilitates the following services. One, the company sells its own goods worth 150 lakhs. Second, it supplies services through its own resource, 250 lakhs. It facilitates sale of goods or services by the non-resident e-commerce participants. So through the company's website, there is a non-resident who actually sells its products worth 400 lakhs and then facilitating the sale of goods or services by a resident e-commerce participant. So an Indian company hosting its services into this company's website. So 4 categories. One, in sale of own goods, the company will be subject to equalization levy at 2%. So, but there is no TDS because it is a non-resident company selling its own products. So no TDS under 194O. Supply of services, again, equalization levy at 2% will apply. No 194O because it is again selling its own services, that is a non-residence services, so not taxable. Third, facilitating this goods or services of a non-resident e-commerce participant. So it is facilitating a non-resident participant's service. So again, no TDS. The last one, where a non-resident e-commerce operator facilitating the services of an Indian resident e-commerce participant. Here what happens, you will cover both. There will be an equalization levy and also TDS. Both will be triggered in this particular scenario. This is how it works. Just to amplify the same case study, here there is an onlinebuy.com which operates the e-commerce portal, wherein there is an Indian resident, Mr. A, who is placing an order worth 10,000 through this e-commerce operator into an apparel shop which is done by an Indian resident e-commerce participant. So now the buyer is an Indian resident through a non-resident portal placing the order on an Indian e-commerce participant. Now here both equalization levy and the TDS under 194O will operate. So 194O will be applicable where the online.com makes remittance of this 1,000 rupees into this apparel shop's account. So there will be 2%, there will be 1% of the TDS which will be done. And then since this is a non-resident, and then the e-commerce operator or the Indian resident is purchasing through this non-resident, there will be an equalization levy to the extent of 2% because they are facilitating the service from an Indian resident. So there is, so in this type of situations, both equalization levy and 194O will coexist. The conditions, there has to be a resident person buying through a non-resident portal, and that non-resident portal in fact facilitates the sale of an Indian e-commerce participant. So this is the scenario. So summing up the equalization levy and 194O, there is both, in both cases, e-commerce operator is the crux. For section 194O TDS, e-commerce operator can be both resident or non-resident, but the participant, which is the seller, if it is a resident, then 194O will apply. If the participant is a non-resident, 194O does not apply. So e-commerce operator can be both resident or non-resident, but participant has to be a resident. With respect to equalization levy, e-commerce operator, if he is a resident, then equalization levy is not applicable. If he is a non-resident, then equalization levy applies. So this is the interplay between e-commerce, that is equalization levy and 194O. Next comes the sale of goods. So this sale of goods is similar to an equalization levy 2.0, but here it is being carried out on the Indian sales. So the conditions: a seller of goods is liable to collect TCS at the rate of 0.1% on the consideration received from a buyer. And it will apply if the total amount of the consideration from the buyer is in excess of 50 lakhs. Most importantly, it is applicable from 1st October 2020. And the section is 206C and 1H. Some of the conditions at a crisp way: who is required to collect tax? This is the seller has to collect from the buyer. Eligible seller or the seller to whom this is applicable will be if the seller's turnover exceeds INR 10 crores during the preceding financial year. So the seller who will be required to do this TCS in this financial year 2020-21 will be if your turnover exceeds in the last year, which is financial year 2019-20, you will be required to deduct or carry out TCS. Remember, here the turnover doesn't restrict yourselves to goods, it also covers services. So the definition of turnover will include both goods and services, while TCS will apply only on goods. So we need to be cautious about this. Threshold limit: if the collection or the receipt from the buyer is over and above 50 lakhs, then TCS will apply. Applicability, which is on or after 1st October 2020. Rate is 0.1%. Due to this taxation amendment law, there is a reduction which is 0.075%. If the buyer doesn't furnish either a PAN or an Aadhaar, then the rate goes up to 1%. Eligible goods will be all the goods except those which are listed in 206C1. Those are the goods. Now, the negative list, or rather the cases where the TCS provisions are not applicable: first, if the consideration is received before 1st October. So where you have carried out a sale and then you collect the money before 31st or rather 30th September, then there is no TCS. Other way around, when you collect advance by 30th September, still this TCS provisions is not applicable. And if the sale consideration or the agreed sale consideration doesn't exceed INR 50 lakhs, then this TCS is not required to be collected. If the turnover of the seller is less than 10 crores, still it is not subject to. And fourth and important, if the seller exports goods, then there is no TCS required to be collected. Sale consideration is pertaining to sale of service, then there is no TCS. And other one, if the buyer is liable to deduct TDS. So in any other case where the buyer will be required to deduct tax on the money that he is going to pay you or pay the seller, then there is no TCS. Or if the goods are covered under the TCS provisions in the first section or 1F or 1G, like the sale of cars, or in the first part with respect to gold, bullion, or the other woods, forest produce or scrap, then there is no requirement. And then transaction of the buyer in negative list, that is if the buyer is not carrying on any business or profession, or he is into an that is other exemption list that are provided by the Act, then there is no requirement to collect TCS. Some very important definitions. Buyer means a person who purchases goods, but it doesn't include the central state government or the obviously the government related concerns, a local authority. And then third one will be slightly important when it comes to the other high sea sales, etc. A person importing goods into India or any other person as central government may notify. So in this definition of a buyer, a person importing goods into India is not covered, which means we can take a position where a buyer in India, or rather a seller in India, does a high sea sales when the goods are still not in India, and then from X in India it moves on to Y in India. Still a position can be adopted that this particular sale is not subject to TCS because it is sold to a person who is going to import the goods into the country. And then in that person's name, the bill of lading and other import documents are processed. So this definition is slightly critical. Seller covers any person carrying on business. Importantly, the turnover has to be more than 10 crores. Persons who are not covered will be persons not carrying on business or any person whose turnover doesn't exceed 10 crores and other persons who are rather notified by the government. Goods, the word unfortunately is not defined but generally covers everything. You have to take a wider definition, but the immovable property and the services are not covered under the TCS provisions. Some of the examples on how the TCS on sale of goods operates, because before the government came up with clarifications, which is very, very late, almost in the last week of September, there were a few positions which were adopted considering how the TDS provisions or the past TCS provisions operated. So, and then the government came up with clarification which added to the confusions in fact, but the reason primarily because the systems have to be upgraded to ensure that these transactions are captured. So considering all these aspects, I have provided a table which will give you a view on how the TCS operates. On this right hand side, a colored box which is sales made before 30th September, but the payments received post 1st October, the seller is required to collect TCS. So one question that got answered is, even when you have made a sale before 30th September, but you are receiving the consideration in 1st of October, still TCS is applicable. So the companies may have to go back to the buyer and then negotiate this, and then you may have to collect this particular 0.1%. Then other examples, scenario 1, seller is X Limited, buyer is an individual, sale up to September is 10 lakhs, from 1st of October is 30 lakhs, in total that is only 40 lakhs, so no TCS because the limit is not crossed. Second scenario, Y Limited, buyer is S Limited, sale during the financial year 2021, up to September is 40 lakhs, from October is 20 lakhs, in total 60 lakhs. So TCS on INR 10 lakhs is to be collected because the threshold limit is crossed. Third scenario, again, Z by seller and Q is buyer. The sale is before 30th September is 60 lakhs and from 1st October is 20 lakhs, in total 80 lakhs. So TCS on 20 lakhs is to be collected because you have crossed the threshold. And scenario 4, wherein there is no sale up to September, from 1st October is 110 lakhs. So total sale is 110 lakhs. So TCS on 60 lakhs is to be collected. Sale before September is 90 lakhs. From October is nil. Total is nil. No TCS. This is assuming that you are collecting the money also before 30th September. That's the one assumption, because you are collecting the money before 30th September. Once the money is collected after 30th September, which is 1st October, and you are passing the threshold of 50 lakhs, over and above that, TCS has to be collected. And all this based on the assumption that the seller has a turnover of more than 10 crores. And this slide is the interplay between the TCS on goods and the TCS on sale of motor vehicle. So how these two will operate, because TCS on goods will operate, or rather will not operate when TCS on motor car is operating. But there are scenarios where you may escape under motor car, but you may have to fall within this goods. So every person being a seller who receives any amount as consideration for sale of motor vehicle or the value exceeding 10 lakhs will be subject to collecting the TCS at the rate of 1% on the sale consideration. Now, again, there are 4 scenarios which are put up here, wherein X Limited is the seller and the buyer A Limited buys 2 cars. Up to September, it's around 9 lakhs. And from 1st October, 80 lakhs. In total, 89 lakhs is the worth of cars. TCS is applicable on 80 lakhs on the entire car because it is crossing the 10 lakhs of the limit. TCS on goods is not applicable because TCS on car is already collected. Now, Y Limited again, 2 cars, sale up to September is 80 lakhs and sale from October is 9 lakhs, in total 89 lakhs. TCS applicable on car is 80 lakhs. Over and above that, wherein the sale is made from 1st October 9 lakhs and you collect 9 lakhs, TCS as goods will be applicable in the second scenario, while TCS on car is not applicable for the balance 9 lakhs. Third scenario, where the buyer buys 5 cars, car 1 is 9 lakhs, car 2 is 15, car 3 is 8, car 4 is 12, and car 4 is 50. In total, the sale value is 94 lakhs. Now, TCS is applicable on car 2, which is more than 10 lakhs and happening up to September, car 4 and 5, because both cars are more than 10 lakhs. And then, with respect to TCS, it is not applicable because you have not crossed the threshold of 50 lakhs when the sale of the third car was done. Fourth scenario, 5 cars. First car is 69 lakhs, second car is 8 lakhs, third is 7, 6 and 11. Total is 101 lakhs. TCS as car is applicable on car 1 and car 5, while TCS on car 3 and 4, which is from 1st October, will be applicable because the car price is below 10 lakhs and the person has breached the threshold of 50 lakhs. So this is the interplay between TCS on goods and TCS on sale of car. Some of the questions, while I would take questions after end of the presentation, some of the questions which generally floated, we try to group it here. 1, whether TCS to be collected on sale of immovable property, the answer is no, as it is only on goods. Second, whether TCS should be collected on sale of software, again a $1 million question. If the software is considered to be goods, then TCS will be applicable. If it is treated as a service, then TCS is not applicable. As I said before, TCS, whether it is applicable on high sea sales, the answer is no, because the definition of buyer will exclude a person importing goods into India. Fourth, TCS is liable to be collected from resale of goods. Here, where a person is reselling the goods falls under the definition of seller, then he will be liable to collect tax. So if the person who is going to do a resale, his turnover is more than 10 crores, then he may have to do it. If the person doesn't carry on any business, he is just buying the products for his own use and then reselling it, then it may not be applicable. Fifth question, TCS is to be collected on invoice value including GST. While it was all expected that it is not required, but the CBDT circular came up with an explanation that TCS is required to be collected on the value inclusive of GST. So while we may expect this to be clarified later on, but as it stands today, the amount of collection will cover GST as well, and then TCS is to be collected on that. Whether TCS is applicable for sales made to buyer in SEZs, like whether it can be considered as a deemed export, still it is unclear. So whether the sale made to buyers in SEZs, we may have to collect TCS as it stands today, but we may expect some clarifications to come in the coming days. The last topic, which is on the TCS on foreign remittances. So this is applicable more for the individuals, because individuals are the person who are eligible to remit money under a liberalized remittance scheme. So here, as Niranjan was stating, there were a lot of foreign remittances made the government wants to track those people, whether these people are paying taxes or how the income got generated for them. So that is the perspective where these provisions were introduced. While this is not on the income or on a sale, it is more a collection of tax on the proposed expenditure which is to be made by the individuals. Now, with respect to liberalized remittance, wherein the government has allowed an individual to remit up to $250 in a financial year for permitted capital or current account transactions. The capital or current accounts covers your foreign travels, gifts, studies abroad, medical expenses, investments in shares, all these aspects. Now, this operates remittance under LRS in respect of tour program package. So whether if you are doing a liberalized remittance where you are remitting the money for a tour program package, then the TCS at 5% will be applicable. If you do not give a PAN, it is 10%. If the remittance is not for tour program package, but it is for other purposes, then there is a threshold limit up to 7 lakhs of remittance, which is remitted through an authorized dealer bank. There is no TCS. But if it is exceed 7 lakhs, then there is another condition whether this remittance is out of a loan borrowed for education purposes, then the rate is only 0.5%. If you do not give a PAN, it is 5%. And if it is no, if it is for other than purpose, you are making this remittance, then it is 5%. So where an individual is going to remit money under the LRS scheme to through an authorized dealer, then, and if it is exceeding INR 7 lakhs, then 5% is the amount of TCS which will be collected by the authorized dealer and remitted, quoting the PAN of the individual. TCS on foreign tour program package, here the buyer can be a resident or the one critical difference here, it is only individuals, because only individuals can remit through LRS. While with respect to tour program and package, the buyers or the persons who are going to remit can either be individuals, resident or non-resident, or a firm, company, LLP, anything. And the seller, he is typically a tourism operator or any person who is going to sell a tour program package. The condition is 5% on the price of tour package has to be collected as tax. Here the downside is that there is no threshold limit on the entire money. Even it can be as low as the reduced amount, he has to collect TCS. And it comprises of tours within or outside India tour packages, and this can be either a business tour or a non-business tour. In all and some and sundry, this tour program package TCS will be applicable. Very few negative list is that it doesn't apply for any of the program packages which is taken by the government or the related government concerns. Some issues, for example, there will be a double taxation because you collect and you through LRS scheme from an authorized dealer, I collect money and then I approach an tour agent and pay the money in dollars. Then there will be TCS at both places. So this will be the scenario. Second is the business trip. For example, when an individual collects or pays money through LRS and paying abroad, while a company does remit money through its account for the foreign travels, then TCS is applicable only for the individuals, but not for the company. So this is the difference. Again, on the overseas investment, while a company, Indian resident company, can make investment abroad up to 400% of net worth, there is no TCS. But when an individual makes, there is TCS. So, and some issues or the procedural aspects here is that when you are going to make studies abroad, you may have to buy foreign exchange and then remit it, but there may not be any income still. You may have to file return and collect taxes. So, and then again, for the TCS, wherein an AD banker is going to remit the loan, you'll have to make sure that you get only 95% of the loan amount and 5% doesn't get, because it's anyway 5% or 0.5% gets stuck through the AD banker. So these are some of the hardships the individuals may face because of this TCS provisions. In summary, which will be the last slide, probably I'll just take you through this, and then we can take up the questions that we have. One, equalization levy, the description of services advertisement, which is rendered by a non-resident having no PE in India. Recipient can be a resident or a non-resident having a PE in India. The computation mechanism is 6% on the consideration, which is more than 1 lakh, deducted and collected by the recipient. You have to remit it within 7th of the succeeding month. You have to file a return similar to TDS return, but this return is an annual return in Form 1. Equalization levy 2.0, it is on the e-commerce operator, including advertisements. And this is rendered by the non-resident operator. And recipient can be resident, non-resident who's availing the services. It is 2% on the turnover. It is applicable where an e-commerce operator's total business is more than 2 crores. Here, it is collected by the e-commerce operator, and he has to remit 7th of the succeeding month post quarter. So here, equalization 2.0 is quarterly payments, and the return is annual. TCS on sale of goods, very similar to the existing TCS provisions. Sold wherein the turnover is more than 10 crores, seller will have to collect TCS. 0.1% on sales which is more than 50 lakhs. It can be 1% without PAN, and it is done by, collected by the seller, and it has to be 7th of the subsequent month. A return is filed quarterly. LRS by the authorized dealer bank, 5% or 0.5% depending on the nature of the remittance required. And again, the return remittance is 7th and return is quarterly. TCS on tour packages, it is seller of the tour packages. Again, it is 5%, remittance is 7th and quarterly filings. TDS on e-commerce transactions, very similar to the existing TDS provisions. TDS is done by the e-commerce operator on the money which is paid to the e-commerce participant, and it is 1% on the gross amount facilitated, and remittance is 7th and quarterly return is 26Q. So this is the in substance the presentation. Now we can take up questions depending on the way we have to go it. So I will ask the host to just see how we can address those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Raghunathan. It's a really very elaborate and detailed presentation. We will call one by one on priority based on the hands raised. First, Mr. D.R. Shankar. Please unmute yourself, Mr. Shankar. Or Mr. Ramaswamy.
As a host, we may have to help them unmute.
Yeah. Unmute.
So some of the questions which got which was raised through
Mr. Nitin, unmute yourself, Mr. Nitin.
Yeah, Ramaswamy, Mr. Patsate.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Ramaswamy,
Yes, sir. Please tell me. Yeah.
Or Mr. Shankar.
Hello, madam. Are you hearing, madam? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir,
Okay, that's
Go ahead,
it.
Mr.
I
Shankar.
have four issues, sir. Actually, so I am Shankar speaking, sir. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Shankar. We can hear you.
Yes, sir. So the first
Ms.
question.
Vinita,
So
Mr. Shankar, can you able to hear?
yes, I am hearing, madam. I am hearing. Madam, my
Mr.
first
Shankar,
question
can you
is,
able to hear?
Hello.
madam, my first question is, foreign remittances to foreign for import purpose, whether it attracts the TCS, madam. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr.
Hello.
Shankar. We can hear you.
I am
Mr.
sending
Raghunathan, did
the-
you hear his question?
I'm
Yeah,
sending I'm sending foreign remittance to foreign for import purposes, whether it attracts TCS.
right. So I got the question. So let me repeat the question: whether payment to a foreign entity for import of goods, whether that will be subject to TCS. So this is clarified that under the definition of a buyer, the person who's going to import goods into India is not covered. So there will be no requirement for a TCS with respect to imports made into India. Niranjan, you can also add on this.
No, it crisp and clear that no requirement of TCS on import of goods.
I see. Mr. Ramaswamy, please.
Yeah, see, there are two questions. One is the tax has to be, TCS has to be collected from the buyer at the time of receipt. So whether this is to be collected through an invoice at the time of sale, or it should be collected through a debit note after the receipt of the payment. The second question is regarding the SCZ, sales to SCZ under the GST Act. It says it is a zero-rated sale and not an export. In such a situation, whether TCS is to be collected because it's not an export.
Right. First, to answer your second question, sale to SEZs, as of now, you are supposed to collect TCS as there is no any specific exemption that is provided in the TCS provisions. Second, with respect to the collection, while henceforth, that is on the sale invoices that you are going to make from 1st October, you may choose to add 0.1%, but this would ideally, you may end up in other issues with respect to GST also, wherein whether GST will apply on TCS, etc. So you can, the methodology to collect, the company can opt whatever is convenient considering your accounting and the software that you're going to use. For splitting that issue into two, for the invoices raised before 30th September and the collection is made from 1st October, TCS will be applicable. You may have to send a letter or a communication in the form of debit note to the buyers stating you need to pay 100 plus 0.1% so that the debts gets completely settled. Going forward, with respect to the invoices that you are going to raise, assuming that the buyer has breached or crossed the 50 lakhs threshold, then you can give a subsequent note stating it additional 0.1% needs to be collected. As of now, the Income Tax Act doesn't say how you have to add it to your invoice or a debit note, etc. So, considering the convenience or the requirement in your accounting software that you are going to use, you may have to choose to consider which will be the most feasible method of doing it. Niranjan, any other points?
Just to add on that the 0.1% is on a gross amount of invoice, including the GST.
Thank you. Mr. Dev?
Yes, sir. Hello. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir. Please proceed. Yeah.
I have a query regarding the TCS. In TCS, like the previous financial year turnover should be 10 crore. But in current year, if you have a particular customer you are dealing with and his total gross turnover has crossed 50 lakhs, so will the TCS applicable for the current financial year for the company?
Yes, so let me clarify it. One, the threshold of 10 crores is for the seller. So as a seller, if your turnover in the financial year is more than 10 crores, which is 1920, then TCS provisions will be applicable to the seller. And with respect to the collection, if the total sale made to the buyer is more than 50 lakhs, and that threshold is in the current financial year, that is financial year 2021, commencing from 1st April, if your sale to a buyer is more than 50 lakhs, then the TCS collection will be applicable, and for the amount which is collected over and above 50 lakhs, you will be required to collect 0.1% as TCS.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Bhavik, please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Please.
You can hear me now? Hello, can you hear me now?
Please go ahead. There are a lot of
There's a background noise, Bhavik.
Wait a second. So can you hear me? I have to switch to my...
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I had a question. I have actually 3 questions. You already said that in case of importers, the TCS on goods are not applied, and eventually it doesn't apply on high seas sale. But there is one more kind of a sale that happens through warehouse bond. So will it apply on it, or it is again exempted?
Warehouse, can you just...
From the warehouse bond, actually, when you import the material, the material is stored in the warehouse, bonded warehouse. Right, and from there, the title of the goods are transferred to the ultimate party, and he makes the payment of the duty, and it collects the goods. So, will it apply on these transactions?
Taking the similar analogy, wherein if the person buying it is considered as an importer and he is paying the customs duty and then taking the goods, you can still adopt a position that TCS is not applicable.
Okay. Okay. So, as far as the warehouse bond is concerned, warehouse bond is filed in the person who is actually imported the material. So, whom do we consider as an importer? Because IGM is being filed as in the name of, say, A, and the X bond bill of entry is being filed in the name of B. So, who will be considered as the importer in this case?
See, that is still unclear because only the one exemption given under the definition of buyer is that if you are considered as an importer, importing goods into India. Okay. So, in this case, when the buyer is not as an importer, then you may have to collect TCS. So, this is the difference which we need to be bearing in mind, since it is going to be only a 0.1% and the liability will be again on the seller, it would be better to opt for a conservative position on this.
Thank you. Now, Royal Exporters. We have already unmuted you. Okay, next, Vinitha Jindal.
Hello, sir. Am I audible to you?
Yes, madam, please.
Actually, I have 3 questions. My first question is that you have just mentioned that there is a equalization levy 1.0 and 2.0. My question is that will we have to apply both of या फिर कुछ हम मतलब कोई 1 apply होगा या 2 apply होगा या हमें दोनों ही applicable करने हैं?
No, both will not apply in the same place. It will be either 1.0 or 2.0 because the paywants for the advertisements etc. are excluded from equalization levy 2.0. So it will be either one or the second one.
Okay. Second thing is that कि जो भी TDS provisions सभी हुए हैं, what will be the role of the exporter in these provisions?
See, with respect to TDS on e-commerce operator if the exporters will not be considered as an e-commerce operator, wherein you have your own website, and if you're selling your products through your website, then there is no TDS under 194.0 or equalization levy. It is more as an exporter, you may take the services of an e-commerce operator and you may transact it through them. So in those cases, the cost of the TDS or the equalization levy may get passed on to you. So you may have to consider your pricing of the products when you are going to do this sale through e-commerce operators. It may be an Indian e-commerce operator or it may be an overseas e-commerce operator. Because ultimately, the e-commerce operators may have to pass on the cost to you, because they may not be able to bear the cost, because the net collection for them will be hardly very wafer thin margins. So in your costing, you may have to factor what is the percentage of equalization levy that you will have to suffer through the e-commerce operator, and then price your products accordingly.
Sir, recently you have put an example of TCS on sale of goods, जिसमें आपने सेल ऑफ कार एंड 206C 1/H का एग्जांपल दिया था. उसमें 5th नंबर वाला है, वो थोड़ा क्लैरिफाई नहीं हुआ, तो उसमें कुछ कैलकुलेशन का मुझे डिफरेंस आ रहा है. कैन यू रिपीट इट प्लीज? जो 5th एग्जांपल था.
ओके. Okay, 5th example.
Recently you have put an example. Slide number 35, I think.
Yes. So the TCS on
scenario number 4. Scenario 4.
Scenario 4, where there is a sale of car. There are sale of 5 cars. First is 69 lakhs. Second is 8 lakhs. Third,
sir, I am clear. I have doubt on last point where TCS is required. TCS applicable on INR 11 lakh. I just want to know कि इसे computation किस according होएगी 11 lakh आया जिससे.
Okay, so where is, so you want, your question is on 11 lakhs.
11 lakh. Car 3 and 4 का total आता है 13 lakh. 7 plus 6, 13 lakh.
And 13 lakhs. Okay, so maybe that's the clerical error. It is actually 13 lakhs. You are right. It will be 13 lakhs. Yeah, you are right.
Okay. Sir, thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Nitin Mohit, you all unmuted you.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. I have 2 questions. We are a manufacturer and we are exporting goods. So TCS is applicable when we are receiving the amount through a remittance.
Sir,
sorry. No, continue.
My turn is done.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll call the next
yes.
Question. Mr. Bishwajit Sarkar.
Next question is.
Hello.
You're not audible. Yeah.
Hello.
Who is on the line? I think I am or someone.
No, your voice is not clear, so we are not able to hear you properly.
Hello.
Mr. Bishwajit.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go on.
Okay, sir. Sir, I have got 3 questions. Actually, we are a 100% TOU and we are supplying to SEZ. Now, during the delivery, Mr. Partha Sarathy once just mentioned that supply to SEZ is a deemed export. Actually, in terms of foreign trade policy,
it is strictly an export, as because it is treated as a foreign territory. So when we are supplying to SEZ under purview of foreign trade policy, it's an export, and export is excluded. So should we charge TCS or not? In case the matter is still obscure at your end, I request your counsel to put forward the question to the proper ministry so that a clarification is coming as early as possible, because we are frequently selling to SEZ, because it is following our export obligation fulfillment also.
Yeah, so as you said, while it is considered as an export under other policies or legislations, still with respect to TCS, there's the tax department is yet to come up with clarifications, while the representations are also made, and with respect to eliminating the TCS on, say, supply to SEZs or to foreign companies. So we may expect clarifications to come soon, but the tax position as of now, you have to collect TCS.
Mr. Gopal Goenka.
Yeah, hello everyone. My question is, I would like to seek clarification. What's the point of taxation, whether it's on sale of goods or is on the collection of money from the customer? I would like to place it with my example. Suppose we make a sale of 80 lakhs from October to March, but the amount collected from customer is only 40 lakhs during this period. So should we book TCS during this period? And in the coming financial year, we get the amount of rest 40 lakhs also gets collected. So in both the period, 50 lakhs is, we are not reaching the limit of 50 lakhs. So in that case, is that TCS applicable?
So let me just give my views and I will ask Niranjan to second. So TCS triggers only upon collection. So when your collection exceeds 50 lakhs, then you will be required to remit TCS. So in your case, the invoicing is done, the sale is done other 50 lakhs, but your collection is getting deferred. So once your collection goes up more than 50 lakhs, then you will be required to remit TCS. So Niranjan, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Raghu, I agree with you. And in the given example, since in both financial years, threshold of sale to a particular buyer will not exceed 50 lakh. You are right to say that you will not be liable to collect TCS because TCS is a levy on collection and not accrual or a billing.
Thank you. Mr. Bhojan? Please unmute yourself.
Sir, good afternoon. Is the selling or buying of script is included in this TCS? Is it falls under TCS category? Incentive scripts?
No, sir. So there are few exceptions are given. Probably if it is some of the things, if it is traded on a stock market, it is not covered. But is specific to scripts. Niranjan, your thoughts, because it is not specifically excluded. Whatever is traded on stock market is allowed.
Yeah, currently it is a gray area. But on a conservative side, as you mentioned, dealing with an earlier question, since it's kind of an off-market trade, which is not specifically excluded, the buyers, the seller may take a stance to collect 0.1%. There is a likelihood.
Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy?
Yes, sir. There are a couple of questions. See, the TCS, the collection says, the provision says the tax has to be collected from the buyer at the time of receipt. So it doesn't say that after you collect the tax, after you receive the payment from the buyer, at that time you have to remit. It doesn't say so. Point number one. Point number two, one of the examples where they said the transaction is between a buyer and a seller. If the value of the car is 9 lakhs, then the TCS is not applicable. This is my view. Whereas in the PPT, it was shown as that the tax is liable on at 9 lakhs.
So on your first question, sir, see, now remittance of TCS as a seller, if you look at all the provisions, like only when you collect, you are supposed to remit the tax. When let's assume a scenario where the buyer doesn't pay you, then there is no point in remitting the tax. So the reading of the law is that once at the time of collection, you can remit the 0.1%. With respect to the example, so 9 lakhs, so it has to be read in consonance with the other one. Like the reason why the 9 lakhs were subject to TCS is because the total collection in that year is more than, rather total sale was more than 50 lakhs. And since TCS on car will apply only for more than 10 lakhs, the TCS on 9 lakhs was applied as sale of goods. So that is the way that presentation was worded.
No, I don't know. See, the thing is, it is a transaction between a buyer and a seller. If the transaction between the buyer and seller exceeds 50 lakhs, only then the TCS 206 is applicable.
The earlier sale of 80 lakhs is there, no? In that.
Correct, sir. It is for the buyer.
And
it is for the seller. It is for the seller. I agree with you.
It is sold to the same buyer. That is what the
same buyer.
Yeah.
Same buyer. Yeah.
Not as an individual.
No. Same buyer only. I get your question. Here, the seller and the buyer in that example will be the same person. That's why it is put up as 9 lakhs is applicable.
Thank you. Mr. Arya?
Hello, sir.
Yes,
So we
Arya.
are exporter. We are remit the foreign commission to our overseas agent. That time TCS is applicable?
No. So a commission to a person, it is on service. So no TCS.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Shiva, Mr. Shiva?
Hello. Can anybody hear me? Yeah. See, I have one procedural question. I understand that there is no requirement for showing a TCS in invoice or by way of debit note or so. If I am a seller, if I have to collect the TCS, I have to deposit with the government, and I have to give form 60, like TCS certificate to the customer, right? So if there is no specific document is not, then as a procedural, how we can remit the tax and give a certificate to the customer?
So see, it is on the sale that you make. So you will anyway have the PAN of the buyer because you need to quote the PAN, and then on the total collection received. So you have to just state only the total collection number received from the buyer, quoting his PAN, and then the 0.1%. So again, you will have to only just file the TCS return through Traces portal. Rest, so in effect, the buyer can also look at the data from his login. So rest is the same, sir. It is not. It is unlike. It's the same as how you were doing the TCS on scrap or the earlier motor car.
Thank you. Mr. Koya?
Hello.
Yes, please.
Is it Koja? Means myself.
Koja. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. See, we are merchant exporters. Okay. Now, when we purchase the goods from the local market, it exceeds the threshold limit from both the side, from the seller side also, from our side also. So, is seller supposed to deduct TDS for the goods to mean for exports?
So you are so when they are selling it to you, you are a merchant exporter. Yeah. So okay. So while export of goods is exempt, here again, like your other deemed exports, so this will again be sort of a deemed export for them. So again, sir, we need to just wait for the clarification to come. So I cannot say that there is no TCS, because again, the person will also would take a conservative view, but we need to just wait for clarifications like SEZs, EOUs, merchant exports, or bonded warehouse. All these things, probably we may get some clarifications in the near future, sir.
But there may be so many merchant exporters in India, and they may be making their purchases from the local market, and they exceed the threshold also. So this point has to be cleared. But one thing is that when we export the goods, no TCS to be.
It is clear, yes. When the goods are exported out of India, it is clear. Like, see, like again, like merchant exporters, there are also SEZs. There are a lot of SEZ players who are also there.
Okay.
So the representations are made. Since it is only from 1st October, probably we may expect some clarifications to come in the coming weeks or month.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Nitin?
Yes, sir. Sir, we are a manufacturer and we are exporting the goods. And for the same, we are receiving the foreign remittance. So TCS is applicable for that?
No. For export, there is no requirement, sir.
Okay. And in some cases, we are importing the goods and we are same goods we are exporting as a merchant trade. So is there what is the TCS role in that?
So as a merchant exporter, you will again, will the goods come into India, or it's just that you are just selling it high seas itself? So
we are exporting goods outside India.
So
and import also we are doing from other countries.
Yeah. So in that case, there is no TCS actually.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Sajan Kumar?
Yes, sir. Hello. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, please.
Sir, we understand that TCS's liability arises on collection actually. So, say if we raise invoice in October for 10,70,750 inclusive of TCS, and if we collect say 5 lakhs in November and 5,750,000 in December. So when will I be, in which month I will be liable to pay TCS? Or will I have to calculate on back calculation in the month of November for 5 lakhs and in the month of December, what I understand, sir, should be done? Please clarify.
Yes, sir. You are correct. It is proportionate to the amount that you receive. So if you receive 5 lakhs, then the 0.1% pertaining to the 5 lakhs will be remitted for the month of November, and the balance in the month of December.
On the back calculation basis, what I understand, sir?
Correct. Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Madhu?
Collection to
yes, sir. Am I audible? Hello? Am I audible, sir?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sir. Madhu here, sir. Sir, I have 2-3 questions. Few questions. I will take not much time. So that we have talked about a turnover 10 crore is a threshold limit. So this turnover includes the domestic as well as the export, or only domestic sales?
It covers all turnover, sir. Domestic, export, service, everything together.
Even service also to be considered.
Yes.
Second question, suppose in the last year I have done 10 crore, so I have crossed the threshold limit and I have to charge TCS. Suppose this year we have missed to cross 10 crore, so the subsequent year whether this provision will be applicable for me. Even I am doing the sale to the one customer more than 50 lakh, but this current year I have not crossed the 10 crore.
Right. So it is not applicable because as of now the condition says preceding financial year you should cross 10 crore of turnover. So if you are not crossing 10 crore in the second year, then you may not be required for this TCS. Niranjan.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay. One more question, sir. Suppose whether TCS to be collected on advance also. Suppose some of the customers are now paying due to the COVID, that's financially supporting. So they are paying in advance, and the sales with them is also crossed the 50 lakh. So on the advance also we need to collect the TCS.
Yes. The levy is on collection.
Collections.
It is not accrual.
In
So
accrual
once you receive money, you collect and pay.
Okay. And one last question, sir. Suppose that we have to pay the TCS only on the receipt from the customer. But what happened in the month of March? I will raise the invoice or I will charge the TCS, and I have to file the return also TCS. But the customer may pay in the subsequent year. So, but in his book 31st March it will show payable receivable TCS. But since I am not paying the TCS to the government, so in 26 A's it will not reflect. So it will mismatch, no?
Yeah, there will be, because the liability is only on collection.
Oh, the liability will arise only on the collections.
Only on collection.
Suppose it is collection is happening on 15th of like the October. So my the due date will be the next of the 7th of the next month, subsequent month.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, name not given. Galaxy 6 is given. Please unmute yourself. Next is, otherwise we'll call the next person, Mr. Udayan.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My first question is, I am a merchant exporter. I export goods from to other countries. I receive to buyer. क्या मैंने को TCS बायर से लेना है ना हम खुद अपना जेब से भरेगा, क्योंकि पार्ट बाय पार्ट हमको सेल करना है पर मंथ 5 lakhs 8 lakhs, आफ्टर 6 month 50 lakhs की ऊपर सेल हो सकता है। तो इसी वजह से हम पूछना चाहता है, जब से हम सेल करते रहेंगे तब से क्या हम TCS लेते रहेगा?
Ranjan?
Yeah, see, what I understood from your query, sir, that if you, as on say 1st October, you have not exceeded 50 lakh, but you will exceed it on a month-on-month basis, when is the time when you have to collect TCS and pay to government? The liability to collect TCS triggers once you cross the threshold of 50 lakh. मतलब जब आपके सेल्स 50 लाख के ऊपर उस पर्टिकुलर पार्टी को हो गए, तब आपको TCS करना है। तो यहाँ पर जब आपने कहा कि आप मर्चेंट एक्सपोर्टर है, तो आप तो बाय कर रहे हैं किसी से, और एक्सपोर्ट घर इंडिया के बाहर है, तो आपका जो एक्सपोर्ट ट्रांजैक्शन है उस पर TCS नहीं होता। आप जिससे बाय करेंगे वो आपका TCS काटेगा।
ओके ओके ओके, थैंक यू ओके,
थैंक यू। लास्ट क्वेश्चन, मिस्टर राजेंद्र। Please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Hello. Sir, we are merchant exporter, 100% merchant exporter. Sir, we have paid overseas commission to buyer. So can we TCS liability or not?
No. For any commissions for an import or an export, there is no need for any TCS.
Another would also we have paid testing charges and some testing report pay. So is it liable to TCS?
No, nothing, sir. No. It may TDS may happen, but since if you are exporting it, then you can take a position that it is also not subject to TDS under 195.
Okay, one more last question I'll take. Usha Chaudhary.
Yes, sir. Yeah, good afternoon, sir. My question is that I have my company's sister branch in European country. So if I transfer payment to that company for the as expenses, I have to consider which tax is liable I have to pay to the government.
So if you're making a remittance for your foreign branch, as a company, that is, you are remitting it as a company from a company's account. If money is put to the branch, then there is no TDS or TCS. So
Okay. And
yeah.
Other question is that I'm selling my product online in European country. I have a website and I'm selling only in the European country. And other is I'm also selling to Amazon and eBay also. That they are also not an entity of India, but European, eBay UK. So what tax have to be means you in the first thought you say which tax have to be considered this one.
There is no compliance that you have to do here. So with respect to the tax, which if any sales is made by you, which is done through Amazon, Google or eBay, etc., foreign e-commerce traders, they will carry out the equalization levy or the TDS. So in your case, TDS under 194.0 will be carried out by Amazon, Google, eBay, whomever you do, and then they will pay you the balance. You may have to check your Form 26AS probably and then see how much was remitted, because on your whatever is the charges they are going to deduct, on top of it they may also deduct this TDS and remit the balance to your account.
Okay, so I have to take all the charges deducted by the e-commerce operator. First I have to clarify with them.
Correct. Yes.
And for India also same?
India will also be the same. Yes. Yeah.
And I'm having my own website and I'm selling in India. So that I'm only the e-commerce operator.
See, when you are there is a slight there's a slight difference in the way things are getting done. So online sale of goods versus sale of goods online. So there is a slight difference. For example, you have a company, when someone comes, sees your website and then gives an enquiry and you are delivering the product to them. So in that case, technically the TDS will not apply. And in your scenario also, you are selling your own goods to a person in India being a resident. So no TDS or no equalization levy.
Okay, so for my own website, what I can do says no, I have to not bother for anything, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have still several questions, but what we request all of you to please send us email or chat box. You can put it so that we will get a clarification from the speakers and send you email. Now I request our regional chairman, Mr. Israr Ahmad, to sum up and close the session.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to really thank Mr. Raghunathan and Mr. Niranjan from BDO. They have been excellent in explaining so patiently. You have been explaining, sir. I really appreciate you taking the time today and taking all the questions. You spoke about the equalization levy and the TCS, everything. As you had very clearly said, there are still a lot of clarifications that need to come out. So I think especially about merchant exporters and SEZ, which is, as you can see, that these are not yet very clear from the government side, but I'm sure the government will come out. But we will also make a representation from FIO asking for these clarifications as well. So again, I'd like to thank BDO team and also my FIO team for organizing this really excellent session. Thank you so much, and we look forward to having more interactions with BDO. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.